Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight on my show, I'm going to be talking about No More Camps, the latest campaign of the Border Support Network to shut down what they are calling concentration camps. And we're going to be talking in depth about a variety of the things that these folks are involved in. Folks, it's crazy out there right now. And I mean crazy with a capital C. There are protests, parades, all sorts of crazy events that have been taking place all throughout the country. And I'm going to show you what is behind it, who is behind it, who are the sponsors, who are the funders, and we'll also be talking about some of the activities going on in Mexico, particularly in Tijuana. As you may have seen in my last show, I talked with Oscar El Blue Ramirez of Border Network News about the shelter Caritas, where he went and where he exposed the people that run that shelter, including Bertie Gutierrez's co-manager, Leti Herrera, as well as Mark Lane. All of those people run that shelter. He also had Ari Harnorvar up in there. Well, there is a brand new shelter that they are going to start called El Puente. I'm going to tell you all about that and who is behind it. Who is behind the Lights for Liberty events that you saw all over the country over the weekend, and the sponsors of that and other different kinds of campaigns having to do with immigration, which are sheltered under the umbrella No More Camps. And I'm going to be bringing you those sponsors as well, which includes The Intercept. I've been talking about The Intercept for a long time. If you want to catch up on all of the shady things that have been getting reported in The Intercept, how that publication has been used as a media ally to these left-leaning politicians and pseudo-activists, mercenary activists, go back to the archives at kpppfm.com and watch the show I did called Intercepted, in which I break it all down for you. We're going to also talk about some of the crazier stories that came out over the weekend, including one about a flag, a Mexican flag. I'm sure you heard about it. And also another event in which a man tried to blow up, burn some vehicles belonging to the ICE or immigration authorities, which resulted in his death. Willem van Spronsen. I'm going to bring you a lot of information about him tonight. And what's coming up for these Border Support Network yahoos, including some of their trainings for street medics, for self-defense. Ahí vienen los chingadazos. And I told you, when these people get together, eventually this escalates into violence. Violent clashes with police, with Border Patrol, with ICE. That's what's coming up. All of that will be on tonight's show here on A Mexican Crossing Lines. But first, I want to thank all of you who have been following our work and supporting us. Our trip to Tijuana is upcoming and imminent. If you want to help us get there, donate to our travel fund for that trip. We plan to bring you some very exciting, interesting, and informative reports from Tijuana and other locations in the area. So please support that and our work. Duke, how can people send us messages, comments, feedback, and donations?
Oh, you can do it a bunch of different ways, and thank you for joining us tonight. It's good to be on And not, as I can see so far, not any problems. We've done some fixes. We've been dabbling around. We've been researching, doing what we can to bring you the best quality programming that we produce. If you'd like to get a hold of us, there's many ways. There's a call-in line where you can leave a voice message, and some of you have done that, and some have done that and didn't want to put it on the air. That's fine. Just let us know, but you can call the number. Let's see, where is it? 701-566-0917. 701-566-0917. You'd think I'd have that memorized by now, but I don't. You can also tweet us at media_PPP. You can email Cindy at kpppfm.com or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. You can follow us on Facebook at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead, the People's Press Project, and Mexi-Can. You can also find a public page of Cindy's by just going to @CindyGoSchempp. Now, also go to kpppfm.com. As Cindy said, you can go to the archives and look at older shows. It's very searchable. There's a little search bar there. Also, we have our current shows up, and we take the audio and we strip it down and try to make it available for broadcasting. The last show, I actually haven't done the audio file because there was so many swear words in there. It's an hour and 43 minutes of sitting there and trying to catch every one, and I haven't been able to do that. Tonight there may be a few, but I'll try my best to get those audio files up there. But the video files are up on the shows. The video files actually linked to YouTube at Duke1517. That's our YouTube channel. Go there and please subscribe. We're still waiting to be approved in our partners agreement, and I don't know what's taking them so long. We've done everything, and it could take several months, and some people get in a day or a week. I don't know what's going on at YouTube, but so far so good. We still need those subscribers, so please subscribe to Duke1517. Push the little bell because I'll be able to actually send messages out in YouTube once we get established. And the more subscribers, the better reach we have, and the more we can get them to approve our application. Also, when you're at kpppfm.com, please go to the donate tab, kpppfm.com/donate. Make a tax-deductible donation to our organization. It's because of viewers like you, listeners like you, that we have been able to fund the studio, and we're a nonprofit organization, so every dollar is tax-deductible, it's accountable. We write reports to the states and to IRS, and we're a totally legit organization, and we really, really appreciate your sponsorship and your help. And also, we have underwriting opportunities. One of the things the FCC does is they allow us to be able to do not advertising, but they call it underwriting. You probably listen to PBS from time to time, and they'll say, the following program has been underwritten by the Jonestown Foundation. And it's basically, it's a type of limited acknowledgement for a donation, but you can do if you have a web-based business, for example, and we put you on the radio in Fargo Moorhead, and people hear about your website, and also you're selling something or doing something or just want people to see it, you can make a tax-deductible donation to us. So go to kpppfm.com/underwriting opportunities, and we can give you underwriting advertisement on the air, on the radio. So that's another opportunity, and it's tax deductible and helps fund our organization. So if you do that, if you're interested in that, you can also contact me at duke@kpppfm.com if you want more information on that. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We hope we have a really good, streamless show tonight.
I hope so. Crossing fingers and praying. I swear. I got to apologize. I'm jumping right to the English program when I promised I would be doing a Spanish program in between. I will be bringing you my Spanish programs. I just really needed to get this information out, and I felt that it was imperative that I do this show first because of all of our streaming issues. The information I have and the shows I have are getting backed up. So I'm going to get this out, and then I'm going to go back and do them in Spanish. Promise, cross my heart. First, I want to start off by sharing a video that somebody shared with me. Many of you actually sent and shared with me. And then we're going to talk about it. Now, this is the one, and I apologize for the swearing. If you've got young people or you don't like to hear swear words, this is going to be laden with them. Also, if you have an aversion to crazy people, you might want to leave the room because there's a lot of crazy in this next video. This is a video from the location of the event where, as you heard earlier, there was a flag that was flown.
Well, they tore down the American flag and put up a Mexican flag.
Thank you, Duke. That's what happened.
And they wrote on the American flag.
They defaced it.
Yeah, I think they wrote on it.
They wrote on the American. Okay. All right. So all of that, let's take a look and then we'll discuss it. Okay. Here we go.
Yep.
Apologize for the swearing.
I don't give a fuck!
Back up. Savannah.
That flag and the troops are the reason you're able to out here
You're a
and scream
fucking
like a
bitch!
lunatic.
You're a
When
fucking
was the last
stupid
time you
ass,
fought for freedom?
privileged ass bitch! Get the fuck out of here now!
You're a Gomez-Schempp. Fuck the troops.
I'm here at the Aurora ICE facility where protesters decided to take down the American flag and put a Mexican flag in its place. I'm appalled that politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have promoted this behavior and disrespected our country, our flag, and our law enforcement. I'm here to show support for our law enforcement and our country and everything that our flag stands for. God bless America and God bless our law enforcement.
White supremacists! White supremacists! White supremacists! Or
Yeah.
what?
Also have the
Or
right.
what?
No matter which side we're
Or
on.
what?
We also
Hey.
have
What?
the right to
Huh?
use that
I'm gonna
flag.
get out of your face or what? I have a question for you now. You are more concerned with a fucking piece of cloth than people who are locked in cages. Children, right in front of you.
You know that
Speak.
flag and those troops
I
are the
don't
reason
give
we're
a
able to
fuck!
do
I don't give a fuck!
Savannah.
that flag and the troops are the reason you're able to out here
You're
and
a
scream
fucking
like a
bitch!
lunatic.
You're a
When
fucking
was the last
stupid
time you
ass,
fought for freedom?
privileged ass bitch! Get the fuck out of here now! I will fucking...
Nothing matters.
You don't know me. You don't know where I'm from.
If
You
she
don't know
can
what I'm
defend
saying.
this, if she can stand here and defend this, optics will never matter.
You're not
You
doing
can
it for
actually
real.
stand here and say that you
I
accept
support the
this.
troops, and I don't. I'm okay.
Fuck
You guys
Oh,
can
oh,
protest.
so we can have
Fuck.
oil from other
Fuck.
countries.
Please.
You support the troops
Yeah,
so
what?
that we can have oil and kill innocent people for oil. That's
I don't know.
cool.
You're a Gomez-Schempp. Fuck the troops.
You support the troops
But,
so
like,
that we
what are
can
we
kill
doing?
people
Like,
for
can you
oil.
explain to me
Go
what we're
ahead
doing
and
to
fucking
protect
distribute
freedom
this
right
shit.
now? Like,
Go
I don't
ahead
know
and
what you're doing.
distribute it.
They're fighting.
Go ahead and
for
distribute
freedom,
it.
everyone else comes
Go
in.
No,
ahead.
like, what are they specifically
Go
doing?
ahead
She's
and
claiming a light
distribute it.
pole.
What is
Oh, yeah. Fuck the truth, bitch. Go ahead and fucking distribute it, bitch. What's up, ho? Fuck you. Yeah, I hope that she goes viral. Fuck the truth, because all they do is fucking kill people.
Oh my goodness.
Duke, your thoughts?
Who was that?
No. She was on the light. That woman. If you're just listening to this on the radio,
They're not going to hear it on the radio. They're going to hear beep 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 beep.
well, honey, we have to talk about it.
Yes, we do.
I'm sorry, I didn't make her a potty mouth. That was all her, you know. But here's the thing. Okay, was she on something?
I think
she
so.
was.
I think so.
I think she was on meth or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only judging by how psycho she was. I mean, I didn't know that you could be that messed up just, without drugs in your system. So that's why I'm assuming she is on something, and I'm being generous here because she was literally climbing a street sign and
Yeah.
she was like dancing like it was a stripper pole dance on a stop sign pole. I don't know why she felt she needed to do that and spread her legs and display her vajayjay the way that she was trying to do. But listen, I wanted to point out that although in most of the places where you have seen these actions, if you want to call them that, this activism, I'm using air quotes here, to go and close the concentration camps as they're calling their campaigns. There's a lot of histrionics, a lot of acting. I don't know if this is just pent up emotion that these folks have been needing to get out, and now they're just like vomiting it all over this particular issue. But as long as I have been alive in this country, there has never been this kind of a response to immigration issues, period. let alone people concerned about detention facilities or abolishing any American institution, including ICE or Border Patrol. I mean, the idea that, you know, you could have this like ideological ivory tower philosophical conversation about mass incarceration and the treatment of prisoners, and, you know, whether or not you believe in the death penalty or, you know, life sentences and all of these things. But the reality of what we experience in America in these institutions is that they exist, right? We can all agree that they're real. We're not talking about Puff the Magic Dragon here. It's like ICE is a real thing, and so is Border Patrol, and immigration is happening en masse, and it is not organic, and there's a lot of trafficking involved, and we know to the degree that children are being recycled, that weapons and drugs are being pouring over our borders. So, you know, I think that the people that are showing up in droves to these events are literally bandwagoning because it's like a fad. It's like a fashion statement for the moment. They know they're not going to shut down the detention centers. There's no way they're going to abolish ICE. None of these things are going to happen, especially not in the perfect storm created, funded, and organized by the same people that are complaining about the detention centers being filled to capacity, overfilled. So it's disingenuous, and I can't tell you for sure if this video is a staged event, if these people who appear to be on crack or something worse have done this all for show, and maybe both sides are all there for show, for all I know. All I can tell you is there's a lot of this putting on a show kind of a feel to a lot of the folks going out to these things, glad handing each other over window dressing BS that isn't going to do anything for the immigration issue, for Americans, for America's security. And so for me, when you do a bunch of loud and riotous things that don't actually fix anything or change anything, it's histrionic, it's acting, and it's bad acting at that. Why would you even use a Mexican flag? Have you not been listening to the president of these United States? Have you not heard him say in recent press conferences that he is surprised, dare I say shocked, that Mexico has gone, and I quote, above and beyond in stemming the flow of migrants? That they have sent out what was unexpected to the president. He did not think they were going to send out a large amount of National Guardsmen, and they sent out 21,000 troops, National Guard, to stop this. I showed you at the southern border in Suchiate. I showed you that they were having people now patrolling the Suchiate River and standing along the edge of the Suchiate River, and yet somehow people are using the Mexican flag and raising a Mexican flag when right now the majority of the people coming in undocumented, coming into our country undocumented, are from Central America. Are these people at this particular protest so dense that they haven't got any clue, any idea of who is actually coming into this country? Why would you be taking down the American flag and declaring a Mexican flag is the one that is being waved or the one that is being forced upon this country when it is all of these people from Central America that are actually coming here? I don't know. In another story, in another protest, which had Mohammed El-Nakib filming. Mohammed El-Nakib is one of the people working with Mark Lane, the San Diego Rapid Response Network, as well as the Minority Humanitarian Foundation and Bridges of Love Across Borders. In this video, He is at this protest with Bertie Gutierrez. Here you have this clip. You will just hear Bertie Gutierrez speaking, and notice what kind of, again, this yelling, this anger, this histrionics that she displays. She always appears to be this kind, gentle-hearted, very sweet lady that is distributing all of these things, food and clothing, and to the caravan goers, that is open to shelter to help them in Tijuana. But this is what she's really good at, and that is protesting. Here's that clip.
No adoption! And we will not rest. I'll say it again. We will not rest until all of the people who are employed by ICE and Border Patrol, who daily commit brutality and violations of human rights, are accountable. Inhumane violations of human rights. Blood on your hands! Everybody has human rights, whether they have a paper or not. To all the employees of Border Patrol and ICE, we ask you, where is your conscience? Where is your conscience? Why are you silent when your co-workers are causing death, rape, and a lifetime of trauma to innocent families and their children for seeking a better life, just like your forefathers before you did. No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace! No racist police!
Next, I have the honor of having the wife of Anastasia Hernandez Rojas. Anastasia Hernandez Rojas in 2010 was murdered by 12 Border Patrol agents right here where we stand. They beat him and they tasered him to death. And to this day, they have not been held accountable. Well, we hold you accountable today. Maria is here, and so are her children. 5 children that had lost their father to the brutality of this inhumane organization called ICE and Border Patrol. We must abolish ICE. Abolish ICE! No more inhumanity in our name, ever.
Asesinos! 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 Asesinos!
Okay, for those of you who don't know what asesinos is, it means murderers. Murderers. So this group of people who, as you know, are part of the human smuggling operation. Okay? That's what I want you to realize. These people aren't just activists that showed up in a balcony at a protest in California to decry the injustices of Border Patrol and ICE, they're part of human smuggling. They're making money off of human smuggling. They're working with politicians in California to propagate more of these people coming here, to promote it, and to welcome them, and to say, hey, we got open borders. We got your back. Don't worry about it. And guess what, folks? They're part of the human smuggling operation. So, of course, they oppose securing our borders. Of course, they oppose ending the human trafficking and the exploitation, because they are part of it. And that's not all. Remember, there are 3 steps to the propaganda. First, you create outrage. Have you learned these steps yet? First, you create outrage. Then you make it viral. Then you fundraise. Lather, rinse, repeat. Over and over again, they do that. Sinvergüenza. With no shame whatsoever. I want you to listen to edited clip, albeit edited. I will share the whole video with you of Lolly B, aka Laura Cristina Livingston-Berger, who has been in Tijuana for many months. You may recognize her. She was there with her pet dog, living out of her vehicle. She is the one that, along with Jake Lee and Kei Kurimoto and Doug McLean and many of these other activists, were out there keeping the migrants in the street with the raw sewage, telling them not to go to El Barretal, asking them to face off against the federal police, calling Mexicans xenophobes and racists for trying to keep the border open, which these activists, which these caravanners managed to close on more than one occasion, costing millions and millions of dollars to Tijuanenses, to the Mexican people, to the American people. That Lolly B shamelessly requesting money, and there's so much more crap in here. Why don't we just play the clip and then we'll discuss. Here we go. Notice how they want no accountability, and they talk about how they don't got time to do a 501c3 and do all that paperwork because they just don't have time for that nonsense. Mm-hmm. Check it out.
Lolly B Healing, LOLLYBE Healing. And I eventually want to start doing live feeds directly onto YouTube, but right now I don't have anyone watching me over there, so I'm not motivated. So if you can move on to subscribe to me on YouTube, and then once I get over 1,000 followers, then I can at least be able to monetize a little bit. And I, feel sorry to have to be a capitalist, but you know what? That's just how it works. And also Facebook has the capacity to alter the algorithm so much and make it not visible. So I want to encourage people to follow me on there as well. So basically, I'll try to give an outline of the major topics that are on my mind. Some of them are the same as a week ago. And so right now, one thing that is really salient to me is talking to a lot of Native activists and just amazing Native people that have ideas and projects that don't have any access to funding. There is no nonprofit, NGO, there's no businesses. And so all these people are doing great work on the ground as members of the community. And they are, just barely making ends meet, barely able to support their family, then how can they go and do this work? And then I also know tons of people that are very good at, this magical abundance creation of abundance, calling in from the universe, and all these coaches that, use the law of attraction and all these things. And yet, if they really worked, then I would like to see all those expensive, typically white, Euro-descendant, privileged business coach people, are you then able to work with some of these Native activists and help them to just call in money from the universe? So that's a challenge to anyone that identifies with that. I've asked some coaches to do that and they have not responded. So that's something that then I see all these people that are very interested in Native culture, and they are, able to go and spend a lot of money, whether to travel, whether to attend an event, and that's awesome. But then how much are the Native people that are even honored guests actually receiving consistent compensation to get done what they believe in? So that's the thing I've noticed. Like, I don't want to name names because that's not my place here, but there are people that I've spoken to who, for example, were pillars of the community at Standing Rock. They were there for a long time, serving the community in many ways. For example, they were photographed a lot, interviewed, video interviews, myself included, and nothing ever came out of it. So that's one thing I'm kind of curious about the journalism profession in itself, because of course we wanted people to be there and, spread the story. But I remember telling a certain person, I will only do this interview if you promise to send me a copy. And I never heard back from them. I sent emails like over the next few years and I never heard back from them. So it's disappointing to me that someone, for example, could be this photographed all the time when they were wearing their traditional clothing, and yet now they're not able to even attend events or attend to their projects that they believe in. Use the skills that they learned from being at camp, from being on the road for a while. Now they're struggling to just make ends meet to pay the bills. And so how can they be out and doing these amazing projects, and yet their picture is used in this article and that event and this sponsorship, and it's not getting back to the people themselves? So wanted to shout out these earrings made by Susan Yazzie from the Fort Peck Reservation. You can find, basically, I keep running into these situations. Again, this is not necessarily about activism, but let's focus on women, because that is who I end up connecting to often more in an intimate space, because I am a woman as well. And so, for example, I know that there are some young mothers who are activists, who have projects, who have visions, and need some support just because they have to pay for their kids, and they the regular things that can go wrong in life, like getting a parking ticket, or you get sick and you miss work. I noticed that what can happen is that within this one circle of people, and these small challenges happen, but it ends up becoming a massive impact, because there's not a safety net. There's not anyone that can just be like, oh, you know what? I got you. I can cover your rent for the month. And I know this is endemic across America, because we live in this scarcity induced by, the 1% and the plutocracy. But I'm focusing on the Native community because in particular, that community has been historically oppressed and just robbed of resources constantly from the beginning to this day. We all live on stolen land, unless you are Native living on a res, and even still, that might not be the original land that your people would have liked to live on, because they were forced onto that land, sometimes moved to a different part of the country to live on that land. So basically, how can we leverage the fact that in one circle someone can borrow $5, another circle someone can borrow $50, another circle someone can borrow $500, another circle someone can say, hey, you know what, neighbor or buddy, I need $5,000, and someone would be like, you know what, I got you. There are circles that exist like that, and I believe that that's out there. I don't know a lot of them, but I just find that we need to overlap the circles. And then the other thing that comes up is, for example, I have some friends who might be in a crisis situation, like, oh, you know what, right now, right here, I need, a few $100s to get myself out of this situation that I'm in. And without the access to that few $100s, everything in their whole life is going to fall apart. And then what happens is, some people who are bridges like myself, I can go to one other community and say, you know what, I got someone in a crisis. This is a one-time thing. Can we just ask everyone to throw $20 in and come up with $300? And then boom, we've totally been able to support this person in the situation they're in. But one, that gets old, that gets tiring to be like, there's a crisis, another crisis, another crisis. And you kind of end up, like myself, eventually feeling like I'm tapping out the sources, like I'm annoying them, or I'm like, oh, here I am asking you again for money for this, for a situation. So is there a way that we can have an ongoing group of people who have access to resources, and you make a commitment, like once a month or once a year, you make a donation, or, however you want to set it up. Then we have this fund of access to resources. And none of this is, I know it's not conventional, But the point is, if we have to zoom out and then make a nonprofit and manage it, then we're already in the system again. And then we're already looking at how we have to quantify everything by paperwork and 501c3s, nonprofit status, and tax exemptions. And like, that's just too much to deal with when someone is like, hey, I need $100 right now just to help me like feed my kids tonight, or, you know, cover this doctor's appointment. And so is there a way that we as grassroots people in a trusted network, through people that you know have integrity, basically taking the same concept of crowdfunding, but not having to throw up a GoFundMe every single time there's a need? Is there a group of people that has access to people who have money, who are saying, I want to help, I just don't know how? And find a way that there's, you know, a designated person that's collecting these funds, and then there's some kind of group or board that votes like, okay, this month it's going to go to this person, this month it's going to go to this person. Or maybe we have like subtopics within these funds, like this one is for mothers, this one is for medical, this one is for activism projects, you know. But I just know that there are people out there who have plenty of money, and then there's a lot of people who everyone they know is struggling. And as an activist, you know, that's how a lot of my peers are. Like, a lot of us don't have dollars to give, but we are super committed in our hearts, in our presence. We're willing to show up, go there, boots on the ground. And yet there's just this constant like desperation for how we're going to eat that day. It's another subject. But so I'm asking the community, if you are from a circle where your average person could borrow $50 instead of having to go everything, you know, through the front door, I guess is one way to put it. So that's one thought I have in mind, in particular speaking to the festival culture, because a lot of people who can afford to go to festivals, and this is definitely not across the board true. There are plenty of people who volunteer or work or save up, and that's their one event of the summer, and that's fine. No judgment. But obviously there are people who have resources who can go to festivals, and then they might be interested in, you know, they might meet some Native elders and really want to learn from them and honestly have integrity in their hearts and respect them. And that's great. But then the festival ends, and then where's the follow-up? Where's the follow-through? Where is the invitation to people who attended the festival to understand how to go on and continue helping those communities, not just wait for next year to see that cool person at the festival? So that's just kind of an invitation, call to action for people who might exist in these different spaces. So that's one thing I've just continued to see as well for that.
Okay. So I'm going to break down some things that she talked about, because it's very important and you need to understand it, because it's part of what is mentally wrong with these people. Let me explain something to you about Lolly B. Lolly, when she arrived in North Dakota for the Standing Rock protests, was just in awe of the Indians and very... I want to pay homage to the Native American people. We're here to listen to them and follow their instructions and be with them and help them. And she wasn't referring to herself as being indigenous. She wasn't referring to herself as being Native American. She pretend Indian dressed a lot. She put a lot of feathers on her hair and put makeup on her face and acted like she might have been at Burning Man. And it wasn't until a year after. In fact, right after Standing Rock, a lot of people that were at Standing Rock went to Burning Man, including Lolly B. And they were heavily criticized for the cultural appropriation that happens at these festivals with these drug orgies, where, yes, they want to not be criticized for the fact that they're appropriating culture and dressing up as Indians when they're not, and using sacred items and sacred things and, you know, mixing it with drugs and sex and all of the things that go on at these festivals. But Lolly B was not saying, I screwed up, I was one of those people. In fact, she was defending the right of burners like herself to do exactly that. And it wasn't until after all of that scandal occurred that she started referring to herself as an indigenous person, that she just became Indian overnight. There's some other people. There are lots of other people like pretend Indian Rachel Dolezal.
Oh, yeah.
What's her name? Desiree King of the Indian Problem. A lot of these are white passing, very rich, affluent, world traveling, pretend Indianing people that suddenly just become Indians one day, and they take on the persona, and they dress like it all the time, and they're like, I am an Indian, and before they tell you anything, they say, I am an Indian, as if they're declaring themselves to have gotten a PhD in Indianing. And it's really weird, because even in that first clip with the Mexican flag at the Geo Group thing protest, you have a bunch of Americans, all of them white people, arguing and calling each other white supremacists. And it is freaking hilarious. It's so ridiculous to me. So this next part is just one little other part. I know for those of you whose eyes and ears are bleeding at this point from listening to Lali B telling you about all of the things that she suffers as an Indigenous person. But I want you to listen to this BS she's going to tell you about where she is wanting some of this money that she wants to just fall out of the sky to come from. But first, real quick, before we get to the money thing, I wanted to turn to you, Duke, and I wanted you to comment on her statements that, having to do this paperwork that would have accountability to the federal government as a 501c3, it puts activists like her on the grid. And they don't want to be on the grid. Also, at the very beginning of this video, which we will share a link for you to listen to, she actually says, as she starts to request money from the public, I'm sorry, I am a capitalist and I have to be a capitalist to survive. Later on, she's like, I got to be off the grid. I don't want to be accountable for any of this money. And also doing something accountable like filing for a 501c3, which you've been collecting money now for 3 years, Lolly. 3 years. You haven't been able to sit down and put pen to paper or pay someone. You're too lazy. You're too lazy to even do that. How hard is it to file for a 501c3? What is she talking about, Duke?
Well, I hear people say that all the time because, one, they just don't understand what they need to do. And you do need some money. I mean, it costs like $800 to file. You have to file a 1023. You actually have to have an organization that has a board of directors, that has some structure. You have to be incorporated in the state that you're doing business in. So there is some paperwork, but it's not that overwhelming. I mean, it's like you can hire someone to do it. You need a little cash. Ask your neighbor for $5,000 and you'll have like $4,000 left over. Hire a tax attorney and do your 501c3 paperwork. The thing is that she doesn't want any accountability. She's, I don't want to be on the grid, and yet she's doing Facebook Lives. She doesn't want to be in the grid, and she's doing all these programs and has all her stuff on LinkedIn and all these different places. She doesn't want to be in the grid. You can find her. Just type in her name and do a Google search. You'll find her all over the place. So I think and I've heard people say this before, what they're really saying is, I do not want to have any accountability. I want to be able to take the money and run. I want to have it so people can't find me, and I want to be able to scam people. I don't want to actually have a solid organizational plan to do the work I'm asking you to give money to. I just want your money. And I'm seeing a lot with people that are, doing this activism, this festival activism stuff, because they want to get cash.
They want cash.
And they're trying to influence people to fund other things that they don't want accountability either. It's a scam. And that's what I think of it.
Money, 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 money. And by the way, if you could show the next clip here, I want you to listen for this, because maybe I'm crazy, okay? I was trying to put on my listening cap here to try to hear what in the hell she is trying to say, but it sounds like she wants you to give money primarily for the most important thing, which is the lawyers, and specifically the group that most needs this money is Al Otro Lado and Nicole Ramos. We got to give her the money. We got to give them the money,
Yep.
Even though they don't actually take cases, individuals' cases. And that's the greatest need, but still give them the money anyway, because they're having some kind of a trickle-down effect where they help by suing the president. And even though they lost, but they won it first, but then they lost? Just listen for yourselves. Tell me if you can make sense of this, lady.
By far, the constant desperate plea is for lawyers, for legal support, for legal representation. And I probably think that every single pro bono discounted lawyer organization has already been tapped for this cause, and they're already overextended. So if you know lawyers, if you know people who, know lawyers, like I've kind of feel like anyone that has been paying half an eye of attention would know that that's a desperate need, but maybe not. So how can we get the word out that lawyers are desperately needed? Now, one question I have not gotten the answer to is, for example, some of these migrants are at the point where if they don't get access to a lawyer, they themselves are willing or invited to represent. They might not even speak English, so how can they represent themselves? Could someone else represent them? Like, do you have to be a lawyer to represent? Could I show up and just speak to a judge because at least I am from the US and know a little more of this culture and speak English? Are lay people available to represent? Obviously then, if you're a practicing lawyer, do you have to then get licensure to practice in California or in Mexico or in Texas? Is that going to inhibit you from showing up as a lawyer in those contexts because you are licensed? Are there retired lawyers? Are there people who have a JD but don't work as lawyers that can show up and provide unofficial legal support or advice or guidance or representation? So that is just the need. People are like, if we actually look into fundraising for a paid lawyer to represent one of our migrant friends at the border, we're looking at $10K a person. And that's just impossible at this point. And so what can we do as a community to understand that there's a desperate need for legal representation? As an example, if I was applying for asylum seeking today and I crossed over the border, I would be put in the Yalera detention center for 3 days in really horrific conditions, very uncomfortable. And then according to the new policy as of February, I would then be returned to Mexico with a piece of paper, which I've had my hands on, with a list of pro bono, discounted lawyer support, all in English, and they're all on the United States side. So we also have a desperate need for Mexican lawyers, people with licensure in Mexico and bilingual, who can represent and consult with people on the Mexican side about their specific case. So that is a consistent need. That is just people are, sending me notifications like, hey, we need lawyers or we need funding for lawyers. And at a certain point, you get to that painful moment where you're like, you know what? If we can raise 10 grand, putting it into one lawyer for one person is not the most utilitarian way to help the cause as a whole. And it's heartbreaking when that's your person or your friend or your cousin or your sister or your beloved that needs that help. But from an activist standpoint, if we have 10K, I would say we need to look at housing. We need to look at providing spaces for people to live in, because right now the last number I saw was 17,000 migrants around Tijuana, and there are not enough shelters to house people. So I'm working with some friends who are, taking the first steps about getting an actual shelter. But we're trying to figure out basically if we group of activists, bridge builders, start putting the word out to try to raise large amounts of money, to try to do a large campaign, where are those funds most effective? Where can we direct those funds to make the biggest impact for the people in the most need, the most people for the longest amount of time, like a utilitarian triage approach? So what we are hearing is that one of the funds or the sources that would be directed to is Al Otro Lado, because they're lawyers that are working to actually sue about policy change. Now, they don't do a lot of individual representation, but they have helped a lot of individuals, and especially, I won't go into too much of their details because I don't remember exactly what's published and not, but they definitely are helping people and from a top-down approach. So if they sued the government when our friends were returned to Mexico, saying that was violating asylum law, they won the case. And I don't want to say this is exactly AOL because I'm not positive, but I know that there was a case of lawyers on the behalf of migrants saying, U.S. government, you need to be responsible for their human rights and fulfilling their basic human needs because they're seeking asylum. The judge said, yes, that is true. And our friends are getting ready in April to cross over into the U.S. And then the other side will say filed an appeal, and then that was won. And that's why all these migrants are now forced to stay in Mexico with absolutely no way to support themselves. Some of them are giving humanitarian visas that have limited capacity to work, and it's barely enough to live in an apartment. So it's not realistic that people who are seeking asylum, who just walked up from Honduras, for example, are able to just comfortably provide for themselves in Tijuana, which is one of the safest border cities, but also has a homicide rate of about 2,500 people murdered a year. And if you were paying attention in the fall, there actually was a really sad case of some of the unaccompanied minors who were brutally murdered just nearby the shelter in Tijuana. So that's a long-term need. If anyone happens to have a lot of wealth and you can go purchase a house in Tijuana and turn it into a shelter, that would be a very long-term, impactful intervention. So that's one activity that's going on.
Wow.
And she says, I think Nemo cut off a clip of that last piece in which she says, some of my friends in Tijuana are doing that right now.
Oh.
They're doing that right now. I will share the Lolly B Facebook link so you can go watch the whole thing for yourself and verify what I am telling you is true. But I mean, I think she's schizophrenic. She's like, I am a capitalist, so I need you to give me your money. Also, I don't want to be on the grid, so don't ask for any accountability. Just give me your money. And the money is very much needed for lawyers, but these lawyers, they lost their case on appeal. So give them the money anyway, even though they don't handle personal cases. And don't be giving your money for like one person, because even though that would actually help that one person, it's not the most effective way of helping. Instead, you should probably give it to the lawyers that lost their case. And also, you know what? Why don't you buy a house in Mexico so that you can house these people? Because that's a thing that people should be doing. It's like, where?
She has no idea. You know, she has no idea. You can't just go buy a house in Mexico, open up a shelter. You know, you're a United States citizen. You know, there's property issues that you do need to be a dual citizen or a citizen of Mexico to own property. And she's just talking about this stuff, and she flips around. It's like, well, it costs $10,000, like you said, to help that one person, but it seems like a lot of money for one person. Why don't we just put it towards housing and helping the 17,000 people that are here? Screw them going to court and actually having an asylum case. That's too expensive. Let's put the money someplace else.
It's really disingenuous what she does. She helped bring all of these thousands of people there, strand them there, lie to them, give them false hope, hide unaccompanied minors in places that they had rented for them, and expose them to the Border Support Network colleagues of hers like River Doherty and the mess of the gaggle of the whatever you want to call these hordes of pseudo activists that are in Tijuana right now, passing out drugs to the migrants and kidnapping kids. Like she has absolutely no idea what she's talking about, but oh my God, that does not stop her. It doesn't stop any of these folks from doing the crazy things they're doing. And by the way, that shelter she's talking about that her friends are buying, it's true. Adam Elfers, the guy that from Ohio, the failed musician from Ohio, that was running around with his guitar in all the shelters in Mexico, saying build bridges, not walls, with the guy that built the group with some of the migrants that you saw from the Viento y Marea shelter that was in front of Benito Juarez, Douglas Oviedo. Remember that? He's in this next Synthesis TV clip. Listen, and I'll try to translate what they're saying in Spanish about the new shelter. Here they are in front of Enclave Caracol.
Tijuana, un grupo de migrantes provenientes de Centroamérica que llegaron con la caravana en 2018 han tomado la iniciativa de habilitar una casa hogar a la que denominaron El Puente. Douglas Oviedo es originario de
Oviedo
Honduras,
is
el
from
líder del
Honduras.
proyecto, que
And he's the
pretende
leader of the
albergar
project
en su primera fase a 30 familias o todo aquel que busque
going
un
to
techo
house
mientras
30
espera
people,
su proceso
30
de
families.
asilo en Estados Unidos.
Many of the people helping are from the United States.
Migrantes, más que todo de Centroamérica, los que
We want
vienen
to help
llegando, los que han
people
sido
from Central
retornados para acá,
America,
para Tijuana. Entonces,
those that have been
hemos
returned
decidido
to
pues
Tijuana.
trabajar juntos para así de esa
We're
manera poder levantar
together
la
with them
comunidad.
Se
to
trata de una
lift up our
casa
community.
ubicada en la colonia Amparo Sánchez,
Is
un
in the
espacio
colony
que ellos
of
mismos
Amparo
se
Sánchez.
encargaron de conseguir. Pero la casa actualmente es
actually
inhabitable,
is not
ya que
habitable
necesita de grandes
since
reparaciones.
it is in need
Es
of
por
a
eso
lot
que
of
este
repairs.
viernes
That's
iniciaron
why
con las labores de
they're
limpieza,
repairing
pero es
this
necesaria la
Friday.
colaboración de
But they need
voluntarios que se
volunteers
unan
from the
para
community
poner
to
en
come and
marcha
help them
las instalaciones
to
lo
get the
antes
place
posible.
ready.
Pues vamos a comenzar con la reparación de
We're
la
going to
casa,
repair the
ya que la
house.
casa pues está completamente dañada,
It's completely
también el terreno
damaged.
que donde está ubicada la casa está pues verdad porque ha estado como abandonado
It's in a, like an
y,
abandoned
pues,
state.
se han como robado ciertas cosas de ahí.
They've
Entonces
stolen a lot of things out of
estamos
this
pues
house.
ahorita con la reparación y con la limpieza. Hoy
So
comenzamos
we're
con
going to
eso
repair and clean it
de la casa hogar y
and
todo.
turn it into
Luego
a
de eso
shelter.
vamos a comenzar con una campaña de poder acondicionar la casa para
And
tener
then we're
las
going to
mejores
start a
condiciones
campaign
posibles para
to
poder recibir a nuestra gente
bring
y
in,
todo. Y pues ya número 3 ya sería
everything
como
we need
la
to
recaudación de fondos que
make
queremos
it ready
pues,
for
hacer
people to come in.
eventos, venta de comida
And
centroamericana de nuestra
We're going to be
cultura
selling
y
Central
comenzar
American
a trabajar
food
por ahí.
and
Sin
you know,
recursos
raising money
gubernamentales
to
y
work for this
poco
house.
dinero, hacen
They
un
don't have a lot of
llamado a la
money,
ciudadanía para poder
but they're calling
conseguir
the
artículos de
citizens of
limpieza,
Tijuana to come and help them,
herramientas y material de construcción
give them
que les
materials
ayude a
for
levantar
construction,
el proyecto en el cual tienen mucha esperanza e ilusión.
and help them
El terreno es
to
amplio y
realize this
aseguran la necesidad de la
project
comunidad
in
migrante
which they have a
es
lot of
grande, por lo que
hopes and
estiman
dreams.
la casa puede estar lista en
They
aproximadamente
think
2
it can be
semanas,
ready in
con
2
planes
weeks.
a futuro, como por ejemplo su
And
propio huerto
they
y la
want to have their
construcción
own
de otro
farm
espacio para albergar a más
and
personas.
build another
Los interesados pueden
shelter nearby to
contactarlos
have
por
even more
medio de
people.
su página de Facebook como
You
El
can go
Puente.
find them on Facebook
Con imágenes y edición de Maxing, Liliana Ibarra está
at El
informado
Puente,
en síntesis.
which is the name of Douglas Oviedo's group, musical group, with the American activists. Remember, these are the same people that were raising money at Pastor Alberto Rivera's shelter that was supposed to go to Pastor Alberto and the migrants and his shelter, but it did not. And remember who is also been working very closely with Lolly B here in this clip and this screen capture. This is still in scene 1, Duke. At the end of scene 1, we have a screen capture of the video where Lolly B was, and it is called Lolly Fundraising Video, with a screenshot of some of the comments by Mr. David Gaskin on the right-hand side there. Yes, David, at the bottom. You can see at the bottom there, you have it covered up a little bit, is David Gaskin. If you guys recall, David Gaskin is the guy that was living in Mexico for several years, the guy that met up with Myron Dewey of Digital Smoke Signals and traveled with the caravan from Mexico City all the way up to Tijuana. So these folks have been working together, have been fundraising together, have been scamming together. And it is very important for you to realize that this is part of their scam in Mexico to continue their fundraising off of the suffering of the migrants that they have stranded now, thousands and thousands of them in Tijuana. But these groups in the United States are also working along with their media allies to set precedent in the law for those working closely with this smuggling operation, like No More Deaths. Dr. Scott Warren, whose case recently had some interesting activity in this Tucson Tucson.com article that I'm going to share the links with you so you can go and check it out for yourself, titled Records Ordered Unsealed in the Tucson Immigration Harboring Case. It shares that a federal judge has ordered the government to unseal text messages between agents involved in the arrest of the Arizona border activist who was tried on charges of immigrant harboring. He was also tried on charges of conspiracy to commit smuggling or trafficking of humans. that charge was dropped. The new case only has the harboring charges, which may or may not be very simple for them to win on. But what I found most interesting about this is that it says that the judge on Thursday ruled in favor of a coalition. Check this out, folks. A coalition of news organizations, including the Associated Press, to unseal the records, saying the public has a right to know, and the government didn't show a compelling reasons for keeping them secret. The Intercept first filed the motion to unseal. So it was the Intercept that first filed the motion. What interest do these news organizations have in trying to expose these text messages? Well, just like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez paired up, I'm going to say, because it just seems very coincidental that ProPublica published a story about how Border Patrol sympathetic people, including agents, were part of this, large group of 10,000 people that was exposed for having insensitive and racist comments in it. And the comparison and the statements were made that half of all Border Patrol is racist because of it, even though there is no evidence of any such thing. This is, to me, it strikes me as very similar, that the Intercept is looking for that kind of got you, aha, in the text messages between these agents with regard to the Scott Warren case, because it seems to me that this case on the Scott Warren trial and against No More Deaths, who have been participants in this smuggling operation at the border, is a big dog and a dog and pony show, to set precedent for who gets to be part of a smuggling operation and get away with it, even under the law. Who gets to do that? Apparently, some people do, some people don't. Now, take a look, because I want to jump ahead a couple, three slides here and go to the Lights for Liberty, which is in this scene 2. It's in scene 2. And it is right after endorsed by. It's called Lights for Liberty. It is an event that many of the people out there may have seen, and I will share the links. I don't think that you got that in there.
Nope, I didn't. Sorry about that.
Must have missed that one.
Yeah.
Well, I will share that with my audience, so y'all, Nemo can put that. Put that in there so that you guys can see this Lights for Liberty event page and what they are doing. Lights for Liberty is an event that you may have seen all over the country that had a bunch of different vigils where people were lighting these little candles. And we had one here in town. Mm-hmm. Dolores Huerta spoke at one of these events. What's very interesting to me is that there are a lot of sponsors and hosts of the Lights for Liberty event that you're going to be looking at here in just a moment. If you go to the slide that says hosts, I know you put these in. So that's still in scene 2 at the bottom of scene 2. And at the end of scene 2, it starts with hosts. It's right there. There you go. Thank you. And this is some of the hosts that are in there. And by the way, you'll notice I have talked about some of these in the past. This Lights for Liberty events was hosted by New Sanctuary Coalition. Okay? The New Sanctuary Coalition is, of course, that the clergy group that went to Tijuana to get arrested. The ACLU is in there. You've got Fair Immigration Reform Movement. You've got Casa Ruby. That's one of the LGBTQIA groups. You have the Coalition to Close Concentration Camp San Diego, St. Andrew's United Church of Christ. Here are some of the sponsors, and this is very interesting. Okay? because I had not seen all of these people all together in one place like this. You've got Raíces, which I've talked about. The Dolores Huerta Foundation. By the way, Dolores Huerta was out in Standing Rock. If you didn't know, now you do. On DocuBlack, which was shared in the Border Support Network by Lolly B recently. If you all recall, Casa again. Keep going. Code Pink. Al Otro Lado. Border Angels. These are just some of them. I'm not reading them all out to you, nor am I going to share them all, but I will share the link to lightsforliberty.org where you can find all of these. The second set of sponsors I wanted to show you here, highlight here, includes the Arizona Resist, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. There you have the new Sanctuary Coalition again, right? Code Pink New York, the Women's March, right? And at the very, very bottom of this one, you've got Handmaid's Resistance Phoenix. They've actually incorporated the Handmaid's Tale into these groups. I thought that was hilarious. Here's the third set of sponsors I wanted to highlight for you from this long list. There's a lot of them. There's Bertie Gutierrez's organization, Bridges of Love Across Borders. Check it out, folks. They're all in there. And I wanted to show you that the No More Camps is a group, nommorecamps.org, that actually umbrellas the Lights for Liberties events. Take a look at this website, nommorecamps.org. Nemo, if you could share that in the comments of the show for folks. Hold on just a second. I got to make sure this is getting done. I don't know where Nemo is at right now. So, I don't know if Nemo has shared the Lights for Liberty with y'all, but I'm going to share all of it with you here in a minute. I hope he's listening and paying attention to me. Here is the Lights for Liberty, or here's the No More Camps. There you go. Thank you, Nemo, for the Lights for Liberty. There you go. Take a look at these pages, folks. In the Close the Camps is nommorecamps.org. You will see that they're referring to the detention facilities as concentration camps. There's a lot of information on this page. All the way down at the bottom, they're talking about all of their current actions. And you will see there's 4 squares that show you what their current actions are. Oh, here's their demands. Real quick, let's go through those, Duke. What are they?
Close all of Trump's concentration camps now. Abolish ICE and defund the CBP. Uphold the legal right to seek asylum and decriminalize the border.
And then if you go all the way down to the bottom there where they have their events, there's their current actions. What are they? Close the camps, Lights for Liberty, Never Again. That's the Jews Against ICE people, right?
Yep. Jews
to shut down ICE, and Movimiento Cosecha. Movimiento Cosecha. I told you that those people were part of the Border Support Network. They were in Tijuana. They were down there reporting. So here's the organization. Here's the group of people that are actually doing all of these things. This is the umbrella under which all of this BS is happening. And who endorses it? This is a shorter list. And pay attention, folks, because it should matter to you who is on this list. First of all, not a surprise, right at the top, Naomi Klein. Remember her from Standing Rock? I do, because she was involved along with all of the NGOs and groups that are making bank off of these climate change, climate things that have to do with indigenous people. You also have the founder of the new Sanctuary Coalition, Juan Carlos Ruiz. And right underneath that, why, it's the co-founder of The Intercept, Jeremy Scahill, author of Blackwater and Dirty Wars. Jeanette Vizguerra, founder of Sanctuary Movement, Colorado. And then you have a lot of people that are involved in the faith community. You've got Jody Evans, co-founder of Code Pink, Ariel Gold, co-director of Code Pink. I told you there was connections to Code Pink and all of the Border Support Network stuff. But one of the things that really popped out at me is the Rabbi Alyssa Weiss, who's the Deputy Director of Jewish Voices for Peace, on the right-hand side of this list. And the reason is because Alyssa Weiss is pretty good friends with Linda Sarsour. Here they are together. And by the way, they have been at many events together, working on, speaking engagements and at all of these different events. And if you just Google Alyssa Weiss and Linda Sarsour, you're going to find a lot of connections between these two women. Remember, Linda Sarsour is the person that co-founded, one of the co-founders of the Women's March, a massive, massive organization of millions of women that came about to oppose this presidency. Don't forget that. She is the director, executive director, I think they said, or deputy director of Jewish Voices for Peace. Why is it important to have people like this in the forefront of this movement? Because they're calling to mind the Holocaust. They're calling to mind the genocide of Jews. They're calling to mind, the murdering of people in ovens, the gassing of people. Of course, that's not what's happening here in the United States. But if you're going to say something that ridiculous, you really do need to have some Jewish shields around, right? And that's exactly what these folks represent. But the reason why this is so important, let me share this video of Linda Sarsour at one of these events. Listen to the tone and the rhetoric of what she is saying, because I just told you how radical, how crazy, how insane what some of these folks are saying is. Linda Sarsour is here to convince you that's not the case. This is the most, simple base request of the new radical left. This is the simplest and the smallest of requests that they have, really, when you come to think about it. Here she is at one of these Lights for Liberties events.
Despite death threats, despite allegations, despite hatred, shows up, learns, serves, and loves. With strength to empower change. I invite to the stage my friend and my sister and my protector, honestly, Linda Sarsour.
What up, New York City? There's a lot of people who try to define for us what it means to be an American patriot. I want you to look around right now. Look around at the people all around you here that showed up in New York City. You are a true American patriot. A patriot is someone who does not sit by idly in the face of injustice. And what you are fighting against today is not new in these United States of America. Malcolm X said, history is not hatred. We don't hate our country when we remind ourselves and our country that we were built on a land by exterminating the indigenous population. This nation was built on the backs of enslaved African people. We interned Japanese Americans on this U.S. soil. We excluded the Chinese in this country from immigrating here. We continue to run a mass incarceration system on our watch, which is modern day slavery. We are a nation that segregated people by race, and we can argue that today in 2019, we still segregate people by race and now also by class. Sisters and brothers, when you hear the calls for the abolition of ICE, that is not a radical call. That is the most fundamental ask of this movement at this moment. It's not enough. It's not enough to end family separation. It's not enough to reunite the children with their parents. It's not enough even to say to close the camps. We have to abolish the oppressive systems that even thought they could put children in camps on our watch. ICE is an agency that was only created in 2003. We were doing pretty all right before 2003. We don't need ICE right now. So when you hear people say, let's abolish ICE, don't let anyone convince you that's some call of the radical socialist left of the movement. That is the most moderate demand that we have of the movement in this moment. I want to remind people that there are children who have died in these camps. And I will say their names here today. Darlene Cristobal Cordova Valle, 10 years old from El Salvador. Jacqueline Cal Maquin, 7 years old from Guatemala. Felipe Gomez Alonso, 8 years old from Guatemala. Juan de Leon Gutierrez, 16 from Guatemala. Wilmer Jose Ramirez Vasquez, 2.5 years old from Guatemala. Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, 16 years old from Guatemala. You have a responsibility to stand up and say no. And that means in the Democratic primaries that are going to be coming up, that this be a factor in who you choose to vote for. Do not let anybody tell you not to be divisive in a Democratic primary. You have to separate those that stand for our values and principles, those who are willing to put themselves on the line to protect children, from those who tell us to be moderate and put our hands in the hands of the Republicans and give them money to open more detention centers. This is simple. This is clear. I will end by saying this. No one ever believes that they're going to get older one day. And one day, 30, 40 years from now, people are going to ask you, where were you when children were being stripped from the hands of their mothers? What did you do? What did you say? And you all get to say that I showed up and added my voice and chose not to be part of the silent majority in these United States of America that have allowed injustice to happen for far too long. Those who are in our opposition are not the problem, because we are not outnumbered. We are out-organized by the opposition. Time to stand up, organize, be consistent, show up, and see these children as if they were your own children, your own grandchildren. We must once and for all begin seeing the humanity in one another, and that does not mean that we are always going to agree on every single issue, but one thing that we can all agree on is that every single one of us here deserves to be treated with dignity and respect and deserves to participate in this democracy. So for 2020, this is all I'm going to be talking about for the next 15 months. 2020, this is not about your personal feelings. I don't care who you like, who you don't like. It ain't about who you're comfortable with and who makes you feel good. This is a race about fascism and not fascism. And I'm expecting you to vote against fascism and put us back on the path to freedom and liberation in America.
Explain to me something, Duke. At what point did I fall asleep and miss when the fascism got into government? Did you know that you were living under Mussolini, or
I guess,
or Franco, or because I missed it? I must have missed it. When did the fascism take over?
I'm not sure.
When did we become a fascist state?
I don't know.
I think that, this inflated rhetoric, and listen to the way that she talked. Look at the way that she layered her rhetoric. It's really important because she told you first that reuniting families, that's not enough. That stopping the separation of families, that's not enough. That you have to do something more. You have to do something more. You need to be willing to put your body, your life on the line. You got to go above and beyond. And then she says, this is about a fight between fascism and no fascism. I know what this escalation of rhetoric means because I saw it when we were at Standing Rock. I saw how we were told increasingly that everything was supposed to be prayerful and peaceful. And then it was like, get ready to defend yourselves because the cops are being horrible. So you got to be ready to be horrible too. And this led to violent clashes that led to serious injuries. This is the same thing that we're going to be seeing again now. It's already happening. This USA Today article in which a man was killed by the police as he attempted to attack an immigration detention facility in Tacoma, Washington, happened over the weekend. I'm sure many of you heard about it. But what you may not understand, if you didn't hear about it, let me just share ever so briefly. I will share the link to the USA article. Nemo will share the link to the USA article so you could take a look at it for yourself. But authorities say that they fatally shot a man who was armed with a rifle and who threw incendiary devices at an immigration prison in Washington state. The Tacoma Police Department, in a news release, said officers responded at about 4 a.m. Saturday to the privately run Tacoma Northwest Detention Center, which is a U.S. Department of Homeland Security detention facility that holds migrants. Police say a vehicle caught fire and that the man attempted to ignite a large propane tank and set buildings on fire. Authorities say police arrived and called out the man, and shots were fired. The man died at the scene. His name has not been released. No law enforcement officers were injured. 4 Tacoma police officers were placed on administrative leave. So, what did I tell you as soon as that story came out and you told me about it? What did I say to you, Duke?
You said, send it to me.
Then
you said, was he Antifa?
No, I said, how much do you want to bet that he is Antifa?
Oh, yeah, it looked like it. Because what they're doing is that it's like they have cells. Yep. And they're calling people together to start doing stuff like this. Like that bizarre woman we saw at the beginning where she was doing the stripper pole out there in her demonstration and swearing every other word. They're activating the Antifa people, the people who have been waiting to be called to go do destruction, to go do tip over things, burn things, to break things, cause harm to people, hurt people. They're being called to action right now, big time. And that's the first thing I thought when I heard that story.
And look at who is leading the charge. Somebody working very closely to the Bernie Sanders campaign and with The Intercept, who is part of No More Camps, Sean King. And what did he say right after this happened? He's starting to set the tone. He says, Duke, read that.
Sean King. History has taught us that concentration camps should be liberated. We cannot and should not wait until 2020 with the hope that we defeat Trump to free these children. We should liberate them now by any means necessary.
Bam.
Bam. My latest for The Intercept.
And there's the article. I want to focus on the tweet. I want to focus on by any means necessary.
Yes.
I want to focus on the fact that he is saying that we are supposed to, assuming that you have accepted the jargon that these are detention facilities are concentration camps and that we need to shut all of them down, as ridiculous and impossible as that would even be, then also you can't wait until 2020 to do anything about it. You've got to do what this guy did. You have to use any means necessary. And by the way, Sean King is very well aware of the shooting death of this Antifa connected terrorist, which is what he really is, because he decided to blow up a government facility, right?
Right.
And Sean King is defending him. He's already telling you how you're supposed to react to this. And he says, there is where Willem was murdered. And he's showing a picture of the concrete where people have in chalk written memorials and things to this guy right outside of the gate. It says, his actions will be called terrorism, maybe because they are. And people will call him crazy. Well, I'll let you, my audience, judge for yourselves from his own manifesto, but let's get to that in a minute. But neither are true. How do you know, Sean? Do you, like many of the other people that have rushed to defend this terrorist and the action that he took, are you guys his friends? You know him personally? Because I know some of you do. I'm just asking about you personally. And then he says, his mind was very clear. He is now arm in arm with John Brown. Basically, he is calling this guy a martyr. Mm-hmm. These camps must be shut down. And then there is that picture where you can see on the chalk, in chalk drawing, people are, I guess I cut it off right there. That's all you get to see. Mm-hmm. You can go to his Twitter and check out these tweets for himself. And here's another one in which he literally goes ahead and calls Willem von Spronsen a martyr, saying Willem von Spronsen just became the first martyr, attempting to liberate imprisoned refugees from a for-profit detention center in Tacoma, Washington. His hero was John Brown, the white abolitionist who led the raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859. This is what our country has come to. Yes, idiots like this that support the Scott Warrens of the world working with the human smugglers and traffickers from Pueblos Sin Fronteras, they believe that they need to blow up their government institutions and shut down government institutions like Border Patrol and CB and ICE, and literally blow them up, like with fire. Mm-hmm. And by the way, folks, the radical group that was formed at Contraviento y Marea in Tijuana, that was blogging about all of these lies about the Mexican federal police, saying that they were texting each other, that the migrants in the shelter were animals and cockroaches, comparing them to cockroaches. The group I showed you connected to the Hecate Society called It's Going Down, where they published their crazy articles and lies about what was really going on, all because it was from their own American activists' point of view. They published a story on Willem von Spronsen and his final statements. Interestingly, I wasn't surprised at all that these particular Antifa-connected people and this blog, which at the very top has an Antifa person all in black, throwing a Molotov cocktail. It's called It's Going Down, but it says Insurgent Proletarian Life. Okay? And then it's got a picture of this guy, and it says that he was killed by the police while apparently taking action to disable the fleet of buses that served the Northwest Detention Center, a private immigration detainment facility. In his final statement that is reproduced in this article, and It's Going Down, that I will share with all of you, it says that he conveys that he was acting in response to the continuous raids and deportations carried out by ICE. His actions occurred on the 1-year anniversary of a hunger strike inside that Northwest Detention Center and an encampment outside of the detention center. Then you can read a list of other acts of resistance that have occurred inside Northwest Detention at the link they give. It says in the manifesto written by Mr. von Spronson, there's wrong and there's right. It's time to take action against the forces of evil. Evil says one life is worth less than another. Evil says the flow of commerce is our purpose here. Evil says concentration camps for folks deemed lesser are necessary. The handmaid of evil, there's the Handmaid's Tale again, says the concentration camps should be more humane. Beware the centrists. I have a father's broken heart. I have a broken down body, and I have an unshakable abhorrence for injustice. That is what brings me here. This is my clear opportunity to make a difference. I'd be an ingrate to be waiting for a more obvious invitation. I follow 3 teachers. Don Pritz, my spiritual guide, Love Without Action in a Just World. John Brown, my moral guide, What is Needed is Action. And Emma Goldman, my political guide, If I Can't Dance, I Don't Want to Be in Your Revolution. I'm ahead in the clouds dreamer. I believe in love and redemption. I believe we're going to win. I'm a joyful revolutionary. We should all have been reading Emma Gold in school instead of the jingo drivel we were fed, but I digress. We should be looking at the photos of YPG heroes should we falter and think our dreams are impossible, but I double digress. Fight me. In these days of fascist hooligans preying on vulnerable people in our streets in the name of the state, supported and defended by the state, in these days of highly profitable detention concentration camps and battles over semantics, in these days of hopelessness, emptiness, pursuit, and empty yearning, we are living in visible fascism ascendant. I say visible because those paying attention watched it survive and thrive under the protection of our state for decades. See Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States. Now it unabashedly follows its agenda with open and full cooperation from the government, from governments around the world. Fascism serves the needs of the state, serves the needs of businesses, and at your expense, who benefits? Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Tim Cook, Bill Gates, Betsy DeVos, George Soros, Donald Trump, and need I go on? No, I don't think so. Frankly, I don't know if I want to read this whole thing. But I do want to read the part where he says, he talks about his trans comrades. He says this to his comrades. To my comrades. Go ahead and transition that so you can see this is actually from the manifesto he left behind. These are the sheets of paper he left behind. This man knew he was going to die. He anticipated he was going to die. He planned out this thing he was going to do where he was going to make blow up things at a government facility, and he left this note behind, and it says, to my comrades, I regret that I will miss the rest of the revolution. See, he knew he was going to die. Mm-hmm. I regret that I will miss the rest of the revolution. Thank you for the honoring of having me in your midst, giving me space to be useful, to feel that I am fulfilling my ideals has been the spiritual pinnacle of my life. Folks, I'm going to ask you, even though this is very disturbing, to keep the hearts and likes going on our feed so that we are not interrupted. I know it's a disturbing thing, but remember, I'm just revealing the truth here. I am not the person that delivered this message. That was Mr. von Spronson. He says, doing what I can to help defend my precious and wondrous people is an experience too rich to describe. My trans comrades have transformed me, solidifying my conviction that we will be guided to a dreamed of future by those most marginalized among us today. I've dreamed it so clearly that I have no regret for not seeing how it turns out. Thank you for bringing me so far along. I am Antifa. Let me repeat that. I am Antifa. I stand with comrades around the world who act from the love of life in every permutation. Comrades who understand that freedom means real freedom for all and a life worth living. Keep the faith. All power to the people. Bella ciao. There you have it, folks. There you have it, folks. And he says at the very end of this, and this is very chilling, this is very terrifying, because I'm going to show you that the Border Support Network founder and many of these folks did know him and worked with him and are powering up for an armed conflict, for a violent interaction with other law enforcement and other people in this country. He says at the end, the semi-automatic weapon I used was a cheap home-built, unregistered Ghost AR-15. It had 6 magazines. I strongly encourage comrades and incoming comrades to arm themselves. We are now responsible for defending people from the predatory state. Ignore the law in arming yourself if you have the luxury. I did. That is what is being celebrated. That is what is being taught. This is the next step for these folks. And let me share with you. This is the Evan post. Evan posted the manifesto as well. He posted this manifesto of William von Spronson, all 3 pages of it. And it says, La Resistencia, Statement on Shooting Death of Northwest Detention Center Protester. And there's the whole thing. Mm-hmm. If you go to the bottom there, you can see he posted this on his page along with those sheets of paper I was referring to. And in this next, go all the way to the bottom, please. It says here, some of the comments, I'm just going to read some of these comments. Wow. Totally different story. Thanks for sharing. Someone else says, rest in power, comrade. Someone else says, a GD hero we didn't deserve. Jill says, again, thank you, Evan, for helping to answer the question and I'm sure others are having about the incident. I've shared your posts so others get the information and better understand. Yista Retsevich, Mike Fassig's ex-girlfriend, says, a child of the camps in Portland. He was a child of the camps in Portland. He was broken and couldn't take it anymore. So a lot of these Standing Rock adjacent activists, pseudo-activists, knew exactly who this guy was. He ran in their circles. Is that all of the comments?
There's pictures.
And okay, this one at the very bottom is important. It says AR-15 posted by William Tester, and he calls the AR-15 Anarchist Revolution 15. Okay? Note the call to arms, because that is exactly what this is. It's not just a call to action, but Direct Action Alliance also posted, rest in peace, Will Spronson, is another post by Evan Duke in which he talks about the death of Will Spronson. He says, rest in power. And then there's a quote saying, today we mourn the death and celebrate the life of local comrade who protected many of us on the front lines over the years. We see you as a hero, brother. Rest in power. And then it quotes the article in this blog that William Spronson was killed, while attempting to liberate an American Gestapo camp. That's what they're going to call what he did.
Wow.
As far as we know, he was the first American to die in an attempt to liberate the current internment and concentration camps in America. He joins a long legacy of anarchists who fought and died for liberation. He's a hero. And in the Direct Action Alliance, Will Spronson, you see here that it is the Direct Action Alliance he's quoting at the very bottom there. Can you scroll to the bottom, Duke, to show what he's referring to? The Direct Action Alliance posted that he's quoting there.
Okay.
And then there are comments that go along with this post, which start off with Occupy ICE, which I told you is another one of the pages that he is connected to, chiming in, rest in power, rest in power. Thank you, Evan. He thought and spoke very highly of you. They're referring to the dead man, William von Spronson, because you know what? Evan K. Duke III was his friend. And Evan says, I spoke with him last at Pride, which was very recent, just last month, where he was out protecting the community like he always did. Someone else calls him a martyr, and then Evan responds, he was certainly no madman. He was our comrade. He was a protector and teacher. He sent letters saying goodbye. They knew he was going to commit this act of terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
He sent letters saying goodbye to his friends. He knew what he was doing. He has protected the local community on many occasions. He has no history of being volatile,
yeah.
He was in his 70s. In my opinion, this was his way of asking the rest of us, listen carefully, this was his way of asking the rest of us to stand up and do something about these concentration camps and the rest of it. And Danny responds, he was the sweetest, kindest man I knew. And Evan says, I know he was. They're going to try to paint him in a different way, though. It's going to be up to us that knew him to counter that. Jill chimes in and says, I was glad to read this post as I was very confused by the news. Not the way the media presented it, because what I read was very brief. I just was not sure what his motive was. My first thought was that someone wanted to hurt the prisoners, and then I thought it was a sign of protest. So thank you for giving me the reality of who he was. I may not agree with his tactics, but I can mourn for a good man and his friends and family who feel this huge loss. Mr. von Spronson, may you rest now and be at peace. Andy Cole says La Resistencia statement on the shooting death, and post that again. And if you scroll down even further, after all of that, you have people saying, so he wasn't trying to detonate the building's propane tank? I'm only asking, as that is in the report. And then someone else posts his manifesto, and it says another page of the manifesto and the third page of the manifesto, and it says, please share it. And then Jamar says, pronoun check. Did this person identify as male or female? 2 posts are using both pronouns. Evan Duke said, I always knew him as Will. I never heard of Emma till today. This person was also known as Emma. And Stephen Hammock says, seriously, a man dies attempting to liberate asylum seekers held in modern-day concentration camps, and you want to play gender politics? These genderisms are forced upon us in the same way that you have the right to believe you are any gender. I also have the right to believe you are any gender. Stop forcing your fantasies upon everyone else in a new form. It's a new form of fascism in and of itself. Wow, that was kind of a hot mess, guys.
Yep,
but I wanted to share it with you so you could see what's going on in these activists' mind. Now, I want to share that this news made the news in Mexico. People know about this even in Mexico. So here's a Synthesis television article showing the headline that a man was killed which was trying to set a jail on fire. In Mexico, they're not mixing words here. Man killed trying to set a jail on fire. But that's not the only news that is circulating right now. Interestingly, this is something that was sent to me by the pastor, which shares a story And I heard that on the last video, Duke, that I did it in Spanish, people couldn't hear me, and
you
the
were talking
sound.
pretty soft.
Huh?
You need to talk louder.
I'll talk louder, but you might want to turn down the sound a little bit more so that they can hear me better. This is an Univision Noticias clip about a man, a Guatemalan man, who had crossed into the U.S. Illegally with his family, his wife and kids, was separated from his kids and wife, and then returned to Mexico. Here it is. Ignacio looks sadly at the pictures of the latest pictures of his family. His sons are on screen. He's in a shelter where he had been before crossing the United States, into the United States with his 2 kids and wife. Then they were separated. They think that we abandoned them. They think it's their fault, or they feel abandoned. With tears in his eyes, he told us the desperation that he feels being far from his wife and children. She's in Texas, they're in New York. It breaks my heart to hear that. But you know, they threatened all of us. I couldn't just run out of my country and leave my kids behind. Pueblo Sin Fronteras leader Gina Garibo say that Trump is torturing families to stop others from coming to seek asylum in the U.S. It's like playing with the psychological trauma of these children and with their minds. That's what they're doing with these children. Meanwhile, lawyers try to find strategies to help avoid separation of families. Children that have a lawyer that are trying to get reunified with their families, they would help speed up that process. It's fundamental that they have lawyers. The worry will continue to be present as long as the United States does not turn around their separation of families policy. Okay, so he sent this to me and he told me, this is true. He told me that this guy was, I'll read just the initial comment. How sad that Mr. Villatoro is now in a federal prison in the United States because he tried to cross into the U.S. illegally again through the mountains. Mr. Villatoro was one of the spokespersons working with Pueblos Sin Fronteras as part of the pro-asylum-seeking movement. So then I asked him for more details on this. I was like, wait a minute, excuse me. Are you saying that this guy was in your shelter, was in your in Tijuana, and then he got into the United States, got separated from his family, and then ended up back in Mexico and is now in a prison? And he explained that, yes. I said he was the spokesperson for Pueblo Sin Fronteras, and he was working with Alex Mensing and Gina Garibo and Irineo Mujica. And he was like, yeah. And he was on TV. He's like, he's famous. He told me you can find him. There's reports from him everywhere. He was even in Japanese. There were CNN, NBC. He said he spoke to this guy, and he was well known by everyone in the press. And that Pueblo Sin Fronteras wanted him because of his knowledge of Guatemala, and because he could go back to Guatemala and be one of those people that accompanied the migrant caravans to Tijuana. That's what Pueblo Sin Fronteras had this guy working as with them. And the pastor also told me that when he was deported back to Mexico, the judge told him that if he returned to the United States in an irregular fashion, he would be put in jail. And he did it anyway. He was already warned that he couldn't go back, and he did it anyway. That's why he's in prison. But the last and most interesting part that Pastor Albert told me about this particular story is that the lawyers are going to use his wife and his kids' separation, that they were separated from their parents, to sue the Trump administration. So one of the migrants who was an accompanier, some people call those coyotes, of the caravans working with Pueblos Sin Fronteras, a group that has been investigated and accused of being part of this smuggling operation, is the person who their family is being used to sue Trump. Do you understand what I am trying to tell you right now? Do you get that, Duke?
Yeah.
His wife is in the U.S. now, awaiting a chance to request asylum. And I was fascinated with the idea that if one of the people working with the smuggling operation in Pueblos Sin Fronteras was one of the families used for these this lawsuit against Trump, what else is going on? Here's Villatoro's Facebook post, and you can see the tags. This is from his Facebook page. So you can see the evidence of the fact that indeed he was working with Pueblos Sin Fronteras. And in the tags of this post, which is a lot of people, 66 people, you see among them, keep going, Gina Garibo, that was in that Univision, Nicole Ramos of Al Otro Lado, Tristan Call, that appeared in the Irineo Mujica, what's the other guy's name? Both of those men that were arrested in Mexico recently. And there was a white dude sitting at the table with them. That's Tristan Call. Alex Mensing. There they all are. Okay? Irineo Mujica. All tagged in a post that's on his page. Yes, he was connected to them. So there you can see, the way that these folks' cases and persons are being used by the very people that are forming the smuggling operation as the victims. The cases of the victims being used to sue the Trump administration. Shocking but true. And in fact, I'm going to show you more about their plans in the United States. This call to action, the call to get weapons weaponized. And part of it is this message to get street medic training. This is one of the things we saw at Standing Rock that prepared people for the direct action, which means los chingadazos. This is where there's going to be beatings, there's going to be tear gas, there's going to be mace, there's going to be rubber bullets. So get ready because you're going to get arrested. And Daryl Long posted this in the Border Support Network. As you can see, that red part up there is the border of the Facebook page that this comes from. And it says, what, Duke? Read that.
It says, Daryl Long shared a link. MS goes to Pine Ridge. Street medic training available. Direct action discussions very welcome. No cost to locals. We can only ask to be notified because we cook for everyone. Some of you may know Winona Castro's family or Clarence Rowland's family from Standing Rock. If you ate an Osheti, Vanessa Bolin will be coordinating the street medic training.
Okay. Vanessa Bolin?
Yep.
We'll be coordinating the street medic training. Let me tell you, for those of you who haven't been following my show for the last 3 years, that Vanessa Bolin was the paramedic. She titled herself that way. I never saw whether or not she's currently certified. By the way, Vanessa Bolin, from what I was told, is another one of those pretend Indians who was at a lot of Indian events, who was quoted in many articles. If you look her up, her total name is Vanessa Bolin Clemens. Vanessa Bolin Clemens is quoted in a lot of articles, attending a lot of these hippy-dippy events where people pretend Indian, festival style, climate change, tree hugging things. But she never said she was an Indian until after Standing Rock. Until Standing Rock. Then she became an Indian and is now teaching at Pine Ridge. I mean, this is a recurring theme. And I point it out not just because it's disgusting, but because to me it is also pathetic. But go on. Continue reading. I just had to stop and tell you, she was the person responsible for taking away Kathleen Bennett's mom and putting her in a hospital and sending her to an empty, an early grave. This woman has blood on her hands. She shouldn't be in the forefront of anything related to danger, to people being in danger. She is a kidnapper. That woman is a person that filed a false police report against an innocent woman and didn't care. Left her in jail to rot. She is not a defender of human rights. She is not the kind of person that should be heading anything. But tell me more about this thing.
Okay. Vanessa Bolin will be coordinating the street medic training and is raising funds to bring elders and teachers to Oshedi and Ranch in August. Tickets to help build local natural infrastructure can be purchased by a flat or cryptocurrency, blah, 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 links. We're still looking for 2 to 3 Turtle Kitchen volunteers the month of August. The more self-sufficient you are, the earlier it is recommended to show up. Setup for pre-build begins the 15th. Message me if you wish to attend earlier, and closing time is the 31st. A couple of days of cleanup and relaxing together.
By the way, they're not the only ones advocating for people to go and defend themselves and get armed themselves and get trained as street medics. Evan Duke also posted an event called Free Self-Defense Training at Volunteer Park, and it is quoted, this is happening Thursday, July 18th at 7 p.m., and he said, "Learn how to defend yourself and others safely and effectively during violent encounters." Why? Violent encounters are coming? Now, who is at this event? Let me share with you the article that was linked here. This is the article. Indigenous-led permaculture movement brings resilience and food sovereignty to Pine Ridge Reservation. And this is all posted in the Border Support Network. You might be scratching your head going like, what the hell does that have anything to do? It's because I told you, it comes from these, pseudo activists that were birthed at Standing Rock. Here's some of the things that you will find in this article. Lots and lots of pictures. Teepees, of course, because the mostly white group of people that will be attending this event, heavily laden with Antifa, I'm sure, they like to hang out and pretend Indian and paint their faces and bang on drums and, feel like they're at a burner festival. Here's some of the pictures from this page. There's Vanessa Bolin. Here's Vanessa Bolin Clemens. Here's Sophia Wolanski. Remember her? She was the girl that got her arm blown off at Standing Rock, almost completely blown off at Standing Rock. She's been hanging around, enjoying the hero status of being with these folks. And here's what they're going to do. This is how they're selling the event so that you can go and pretend Indian and be close to the land and, I guess, learn how to be a street medic for when the brawls and fights and protests begin. Listen for yourselves.
Being in alliance is about being in service to each other, and when you're in service, it's about a yes, of course attitude. Being an ally also means that because I'm committed, I'm going to explore further and dig deeper and see where the growth opportunity is there for me, and if I can actually add value.
Everybody loves the cultural native. Everybody loves the ceremonies we share, but when it comes to talking about the hardships and the injustices and the reality of what Native people deal with on a day-to-day basis, that Native isn't so popular. So being willing to stand next to that outspoken Native that isn't always talking about the most popular topics, I think that's what makes a good ally.
Bringing vibrant and dedicated energy, they lived and worked together for 10 days to honor Indigenous ways, to acquire
I think showing up as an ally starts with a contextual understanding of not only what has happened, but what is happening. And I think it's really important to remember that this isn't past tense and these injustices are happening every day, and we're actually seeing them unfold for people. Like, we're seeing this healing happen for people within the camp to this very day.
People don't have clean water, they don't have running water, they don't have good food. They don't have housing, so they're just really in this mode where they can't thinking about like intergenerational trauma and epigenetics, and really hard to heal something when it's like you get a wound and it scabs up and then someone keeps coming and like ripping it off, and it's like, you know, it's ongoing. It's not like it hasn't stopped yet. It's been going on for like 500 years. Since then we've been like in survival mode, trying to just survive, and it's hard to really focus on anything else, you know, like building happy communities and having healthy relationships with your children.
And it's just the willingness to help, you know, the willingness to ask questions when it's appropriate, showing a respect for the culture, for the land, for the spirituality, for the people. If you treat the earth in a good way, the earth will treat you in a good way. And it's just a mutual respect is what it is, really.
Olseri has provided low-cost, alternative, replicable solutions to challenges such as severe food scarcity, lack of adequate housing, extreme poverty that have persisted for generations on Pine Ridge. Let me just say something to you folks. Standing Rock did not fix or address the persistence poverty of Pine Ridge. These people, while they want to be Indian adjacent and bang a drum and have a good time and learn about permaculture, they're not fixing the problems in Pine Ridge either. Lollybees of the world telling you how they want to crowdsource so that they can travel around and be bums and put their hand out and ask you for money every time they can't pay their phone bill. They can't, because they refuse to work, because they've dedicated themselves to this lawlessness. They've dedicated their lives to traveling around and creating chaos, going from campaign to campaign, from protest to protest, from natural disaster to human created crisis like the one at our southern border. And the people that attend these events, most of them who are affluent white folks that like to travel around and do all of these things, they have a history of doing the opposite of what they say when it comes to indigenous culture. They're not respecting it. Wearing someone like a costume, dressing up like them, that is not respect. And all of these people love it. Here's Megan Strom's Facebook page, just so you can check out who and where she is. And here, of course, she's a burner. Here's a picture of her at a Burning Man event from her page. I saw immediately her page. I'm like, of course, she's one of the, she's like Lolly B. She's like Desiree Kane. They love the, you know, all like the I want to be like a native. And by the way, from her Facebook page, if you will go back to her Facebook page and scroll down into her About section, you'll notice here that she is an event organizer for this permaculture skills convergence, right? She's one of the organizers for that. Not a native person, not even a pretend Indian like Vanessa Bolin Clemens. They got this lady who's with the Rainforest Action Network. You've heard of that before because it was part of the groups that I exposed in the Fake Progressive Agenda series that I did in conjunction with Wrong Kind of Green, and the former Zero Waste Coordinator at the Cosmic Convergence Festival. Just like Lolly B, she's one of those people that lives, that submerses themselves in these festival cultures. And this is one of the other people that was promoting the event, Michael Alcazar. From his page, you can see he is also friends with Winona LaDuke. And look at all of those people there. The vast majority of those faces are white faces going to enjoy an event about native culture, supposedly, right? It's supposed to do that. What is the Cosmic Convergence for? Here's the Cosmic Convergence Festival videos from their own page, just to give you a little flavor of what they're really about. Okay, here's the first one. Maybe.
Oh yeah, it'll be there in a second. Hold on a second.
Here we go. We've got a Cosmic Conversions video. This is what they're about.
What does it all mean?
Just people kissing. They're touching each other's chests. A lot of them have dreads. They're dancing. Their faces are painted. They're hula hooping. There's a fire. They're rolling around on the ground in what appears to be some sort of ecstasy. It looks like rainbow people at Burning Man.
Sacred fire.
Right. There's some kind of mandala looking thing. Okay, that's enough of that. Go to the next one. I just want you to get a taste of what these people are really about, okay? Because they're like, oh, it's all like sacred and we're protecting the water and we're like trying to honor Native Americans. What they're really trying to do is get high and party. Come on. Here's their next video. Check it out for yourselves.
One moment, please.
One moment, please. Here we go. In just a moment, you'll be able to see this video.
It's like a rave.
Okay, stop that. Stop it. I'm going to get a seizure. Please stop it. Okay, now let's look at the third one, okay? Check this third one out. This, again, I just want to show you the real deal. I want you to see what they're really about. Does this look like it's respectful of indigenous culture? And here's what they're teaching. This is the audio from one of their trainings, and this is the video screen capture from the Cosmic Convergence Festival. As you can see where they're talking, they're teaching people. Take a listen what they're teaching.
Certain things, which I'll talk about later, but the real key thing that blockchain technology and cryptocurrency is an innovation in the 21st century is that we can now make direct financial transfers, and everyone can agree that those financial transfers happened without a bank or a government or any third party. It's basically just this list that everyone has on their laptop. So like you can download the Bitcoin blockchain. At this point, it's probably a really big file. It'll take you like a couple days to download, but you can actually download a copy of it and have it on your computer. And that you basically become a validator. So this is called mining, and we'll get into the environmental consequences of that in a minute or later. There's newer solutions. Bitcoin is like a dinosaur. It's like the first blockchain, the first manifestation of this technology, and it's kind of already out of date in some ways. Some would say that's like another opinion that I have. But the real revolution is that it allows human beings to exchange value with each other without banks, without corporations, without governments.
And it is Bitcoin, blockchain, same nonsense that we've been seeing all the way going back to Standing Rock. And why? Why are they selling this nonsense of Bitcoin and blockchain? 'Cause laundering money. 'Cause hiding money. Paying people without anybody being connected to those payments. That's why they can call for these terrorist activities and don't have to worry about who's going to show up and blow themselves up or kill people, right? Because they're getting paid in a way that no one can even find out about. And let me just share with you that the photos from some of these events were posted in a place called Umaya Photos, and you can go to their Facebook page and check out for yourself the events that this Cosmic Convergence has all over the world. They do this all over the place. But I wanted to give you an idea from this next video. Is it the next one is a video? Yeah.
Yes.
That will show you what really happens when they get together, what's going on. And tell me if this looks respectful of indigenous culture. They definitely are trying to mimic it, but I don't know how respectful this is. Your thoughts?
Make a promise? Is that a promise? Every dance is a fucking prayer, man. Every party's a fucking prayer. So let's pray like these motherfuckers are about to take us down into. Let them carry you in. Let these Indians carry you in. Come
Let
on,
these
make
Indians
a circle.
carry
Make
you
a
in.
circle. I want a circle. That's it. You just have to march into a circle.
Wow.
Yeah, they were having Indians singing. It sounded like they put, some DJ on it.
Uh-huh.
And then he was cussing like a sailor. It was awful.
Yeah.
That's what they're really about, Duke.
Mhm.
And just so you can see from their own Instagram page, this is their Instagram page. I've got a lot of photos on there. They love mixing real Native Americans with all of the white people that want to consume their culture. That's what this is really about, exploiting people of color. Don't let any of these people in the Border Support Network that are trying to blow up the so-called detention, the concentration camps, as they're calling them, that they're trying to save lives and unify families. They are exploiting people of color, consuming their culture, exploiting their culture. It's what they do. It's what they live for. Check out the photos from their Instagram, like this one. Here's some other ones. And it gives you an idea. They gotta dress up as Indians, and why not have some fire? And look at those two women down there. If that is not a commodification, a hypersexualization, and it's two white women dressed like Indians in very scantily clad clothes, with some fire thrown in for I don't know what, and they look like they're about to make out. I don't know what's happening. It's kind of gross. My point is, these people that claim this is what Megan is all about. This is what the person organizing the event at Pine Ridge Indian Reservation comes from. This is what they're into. Just like Lolly B, just like Desiree Kane, and so many others that I have shown. Adam Elfers, all of these folks. That's what they're into. They're a bunch of drug-addled partiers that love this stuff. Look at the next one. Look at their parties. Doesn't this look like a rave?
It looks like Burning Man.
It looks like Burning Man with hula hoops and DJs, and it's what people are into. Rich people. Because I haven't gone to this. There's people that go to these things every year, like Lolly B. And they have the money to do it because they don't have anything else to do, like a job. A job. That's why they need you to pony up your cash so they can go be the great-hearted activists that they are. Here's another one. Again, more of the same. And for good measure, under the pictures of the white guy getting his face painted like he's a little child at a carnival, you've got a Mexican family, an indigenous family, I guess, performing for these folks at this event with all of their dreadlocks. Anyway, here's what's next on their agenda. Storm the camps. July 28th, they want people like the martyr that has just given his life for this movement that seeks to close these concentration camps to storm a camp. Just find one near you. Doesn't matter. They can't stop us all. And make no mistake, here are the details of what they want you to do. And they want you to get your hands dirty. Well, maybe I shouldn't say dirty. They want you to get killed. They want you to get armed. They want you to get hurt. They want you possibly to get killed. It says, the abuse of power by CBP and ICE must end immediately. To this end, we the people of conscience will peacefully assemble at the concentration camps and bring compassion and justice to our fellow humans, and especially the children who are being indefinitely detained in violation of the Flores Agreement. This is a peaceful, nonviolent action. We ask all CBP, ICE, and security personnel to find it in your heart to not report to work. Oh, how do you think that's going to go over, dude?
Really well. I just won't go because you said so.
Take a vacation or a sick day, or simply don't show up. We ask that no weapons be brought to the site, but we recognize all people have a right to take appropriate precautions and preparations for self-defense, in accordance with the law. Well, I don't think that bringing weapons will be in accordance with the law. Just saying. The wearing and use of protective equipment does not constitute a violent act, regardless of what riot cops may announce, as we saw them do at Standing Rock. What did you ask to bring to throw over the fence at the building?
Yep.
Water bottles, toothbrushes, toothpaste, soap, towels, combs, any other hygiene items. Bring a roll of toilet paper if you want. They're not going to give it to anybody. They're going to literally, it says small bottles of shampoo. It says throw over fences. Do you see that, Duke?
Yep.
They're just going to throw this stuff at the building. And also, what else you're going to bring?
Pliers and wire cutters and bolt cutters.
What would you need that for, Duke?
To cut a hole big enough in the fence to fit the toilet paper through.
And they also need legal observers. That's what
yes.
Evan Duke and Lila Sinclair and Brendan Tucker said they were. A lot of these people just call themselves that so they can be in the melee and then say, oh, we're just here to observe. What else do they need? Trained street medics.
That's right. Live streamers.
So go to the training with Vanessa Bolin Clemens and then get ready. Get ready. Share in all your leftist groups. Well, folks, that's the crazy you can expect coming your way here in America from these groups connected to the Border Support Network. Keep it here on 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. We'll be bringing you much more information about these activists. Thank you and good night.